Hey everybody, this is Mike with On Point Preparedness. I wanted to bring you with me on a little journey through one of the most occult parks I think I've ever been in. I didn't have to go to New York or Paris or Denmark to get the footage that you're about to see, but nevertheless, it was definitely a cult, and it's at a place called Pyramid Hill in Little Hamilton, Ohio. The park is about 300 acres, and it's filled with all sorts of ancient Egypt, Rome, Greek, and modern art that just oozes occult symbology. It was started by this very wealthy philanthropist named Harry T. Wilkes. You're going to see a little bit more about him towards the end of this video, but he was a collector of many, at least in what my eyes are, disturbing pieces of art. And the big thing that I think you're going to get out of this video is that this park is filled with tons of different sculptures and paintings by a variety of unrelated artists, but it seems like they're all led to the same type of occult symbols that we see in the Illuminati, in Hollywood, in the occult. And you can see how the Antichrist spirit is actually leading these people like a snake whispering in their ears. Now, where I think I'll start our journey is this very popular attraction at the park. You've got two figures suspended in midair, and they're separated by a wall. This is supposed to represent Romeo and Juliet, but if you study the occult and the symbology that they use in movies and such, you'll see a direct representation with how they use mirrors and portals. There's two sides almost separated by a veil, and then you need to break on through to the other side. And that is exactly what you see at the very top. There is a carved out heart, and that's where these two figures are trying to join hands. And that's what we see in the agenda right now. We see that the veil is lifting upon the evils of this world, and things are getting more chaotic, more disorganized. This is the inversion, the as above, so below. Now back to the founder of this park, who is Harry T. Wilkes. He started this whole thing in 1996, and what you're looking at is a pyramid very similar to the Louvre in Paris, and believe it or not, this is actually his home, or was his home. He passed when he was 89 years old, but it almost looks like a military compound or bunker, especially with a watchtower at the top. There's only 1 to 2 visits that they have per year to allow people to see on the inside of his home. I would have really liked to see what was going on in there, and there's really not that much information on this guy as an individual, but you can't get any more occult than living in a pyramid yourself, and also being a collector of all this very weird art, as well as ancient Rome, Egypt, and Greek art, which is obviously very pagan in nature. And it doesn't stop there. The guy actually has his own Stonehenge on the property. If you've ever looked up Stonehenge, it's definitely very occult, very pagan. These things were typically worshipped or were engaged in some type of worship and were placed around ley lines where they tried to harness the earth's energy. And oh yeah, going back to pyramids, in the Stonehenge, there is a pyramid, again with an all-seeing eye at the apex. Oh, and before I move off the topic of Harry T. Wilkes, I should mention that he also took a trip to Antarctica, so I don't know, lots of people have been taking trips to Antarctica. I wonder what he saw there that made him get into all these types of occult things. Now, if that wasn't enough occult for you, let's just top it off with the occult cube, Saturn's cube. Many people have covered this structure because it exists all around the world. This black multi-dimensional cube, which you can see in places like Manhattan, Australia, Denmark, Santa Ana, and many religions even center their worship around the black cube, like the Muslims in Mecca, as well as the Jews who have a black cube strapped to their head when they pray. Study of the black cube, or the tesseract, a cube in a cube, is actually a really interesting study. Its symbolism is multifaceted, like you can see here. It almost looks like the Jewish Kabbalah or Jewish mysticism tree of life, but it also has many other symbols and meanings as well. Some say that the IXXI Roman numerals are symbolized in there, which relates to the 9/11 tragedy, and also it talks about dimensional time, breaking through the veil, sort of how we started this video with the Romeo and Juliet separated by the veil. You'll see a lot of occult movies as well as music videos where people are breaking out of black cubes, breaking out of the dimensions of time and space. As I continued my journey throughout the park, there was tons of obelisks. And if you've done a study of obelisks and domes, you'll know that the obelisk represents a male phallus and the domes represent a female womb. These people do in fact worship sex, much like in the movie Eyes Wide Shut, and that's what all these sculptures pretty much represent. The two most known pairs of obelisks and domes is at the Washington Mall with the Washington Monument and the Capitol, as well as the obelisk that is in front of the dome at St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican. If you do a study of these two buildings, and I'll put a link in the YouTube description box, you'll see that the obelisk and dome is not the only similarities that these two structures have. It actually goes much, much deeper than this, and it is very prophetic. Continuing on with this theme about how the elite love to worship the reproductive organs, there's this structure which is very dark and almost seems to represent the divine feminine. It's called Shh by Shekiah Booker. Now, this piece of art is obviously very dark, and if you just are like an auditor and pull the string, you'll almost find more and more and more Antichrist spirit involved in these things. The artist herself almost looks like she is involved in voodoo and witchcraft, and she has other art exhibits that desecrate the cross of Jesus Christ, which you can see here. Again, these people are pretty much filled with the Antichrist spirit, and if you just do enough digging, you'll find out all the loose ends. So where I ended my journey was this indoor ancient museum. It actually has real ancient sculptures that were donated to the museum. Lots of things from ancient Egypt, Rome, Greece, and others. You can see that there's a lot of the things in these sculptures that I've covered in prior videos, like worship of the owl or Moloch. You can see in this photo the lotus flower, which I've done a video on that with regards to the Pope and Donald Trump. You can see here the worship of the bull with the moon or sun between its horns and its representation of Nimrod. I'll tell you what, I know all of us have been through museums and we've looked at these ancient sculptures time and time again, whether it's through school field trips or whatnot. But now that I have eyes to see, and now that I've done this YouTube channel, and now that I know the symbology, and I know the times that we're in, and I see these things resurfacing, I look at these original artifacts, these original sculptures, and I realize that this is prophecy. This is the old rearing its ugly head and coming back into the present. A new Babylonian religion that is sprouting. It is absolutely incredible now to look at, again, these one-of-a-kind original artifacts and see that back then they're doing all the things that the world or the sons and daughters of disobedience are doing today. And I'm looking at these things with all new eyes, and I just find it absolutely incredible. Now I'll tell you what, this whole video is going to end on a pretty incredible note. Anytime I go into an occult place, I say a prayer over me for protection. And would you have it that at the end of my journeys inside of this museum, someone actually left a gospel tract with John 3:16 on it. For God so loved the world, he gave his only son, Jesus, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. This note was not just meant for me, I think it was meant for all of you as well. Just know that things are strange. You have to admit, there's wars and rumors of wars. There's earthquakes and volcanoes in diverse places, sinkholes, mass animal deaths, disobedience, and moral degradation happening all throughout society. It is getting just too much more than one can bear, and you don't want to get swept up in this Antichrist spirit. So I pray that you have the curiosity to seek out Christ, because he is the only one that will give you shelter eternally from what's coming onto this world. This is Mike with On Point Preparedness. Hope you enjoyed this. God bless.